There he is. We are now streaming live, and it looks like everybody's present.
Okay, so without much further ado, the regular meeting of the Board of the Park District of Highland Park is called to order on Thursday, December 16, 2021 at 6:00 p.m. Pursuant to Section 7E of the Open Meetings Act, the President of the Board of Park Commissioners has made a finding that it is not practical or prudent to hold in-person meetings because of the COVID-19 public health emergency. Neither the elected officials nor the public will be allowed to attend regular or committee meetings in person, but will participate virtually by the means described below, whatever that is. So at this point, Roxanne, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Bernstein,
Here.
Commissioner Freeman,
Here.
Commissioner Kaplan,
Here.
Vice President Grossberg,
Here.
and President Ruttenberg.
I am here also. Thank you. We are all present. Executive Director Romes, are there any additions to the agenda?
No additions from staff.
Okay, thank you. Are there any additions that the commissioners would like to put on the agenda for discussion?
I do.
Go ahead.
I've gotten a couple emails from members of the rec center asking us if we would either check for vaccines or a negative test before letting people in. I told two of the members that I would bring it to everybody's attention and see what everybody thought.
Okay, so why don't we move that to for the latter part of the agenda?
Fine.
We'll come back to that. Okay. So at this point, thank you, Brian. Public hearing for proposed property tax increase for the Park District of Highland Park Truth in Taxation Act. Is there a motion to convene the public hearing for the Truth in Taxation Act on the proposed property tax levy increase for the Park District of Highland Park in 2021? We need a motion, please.
So moved.
Is there a second? Okay, good. Thank you. Roxanne, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Bernstein,
Aye.
Commissioner Freeman,
Aye.
Commissioner Kaplan,
Aye.
Vice President Grossberg,
Yes.
President Ruttenberg.
Aye, the motion carries. So the public hearing for the Truth in Taxation Act on the proposed property tax increase for the Park District of Highland Park for 2021 is now in session. I'm supposed to go bang with a gavel, I suppose. As required by law, notification of tonight's hearing was posted in the Highland Park News on December 22, 2021. Anyone wishing to speak on the public hearing will need to use the raise hand function in Zoom to indicate that they would like to speak. The board secretary will call on registrants who have activated the raise hand feature in alphabetical order. Executive Director Romes or Roxanne will call and raise hands. Are there any raised hands?
No, there's only one attendee, and it's actually one of our employees.
Okay. Are there any members of the Board of Commissioners who wish to comment on this document? Hearing none, let the record show that all who desire to speak have been afforded the opportunity. Let the record show that there were no members of the community or Board of Commissioners who have chosen to speak on this issue. Executive Director Romes, are you aware of any written communications that were received relative to the proposed tax increase?
I am not aware of any communication regarding this. No.
All right, thank you. Is there a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Would somebody second it, please?
Second.
All right. Roxanne, please call the roll.
Commissioner Bernstein,
Aye.
Commissioner Freeman,
Aye.
Commissioner Kaplan,
Aye.
Vice President Grossberg,
Yes.
President Ruttenberg.
Aye, the motion carries. Public comment for items on the agenda. Anyone wishing to comment on items on the agenda. Oh, I'm sorry, the hearing on the tax, Truth in Lending Tax Act has been closed. We are returning to our normal meeting agenda. Anyone wishing to comment on items on the agenda will need to, once again, use the raise hand function in Zoom. Executive Director Romes, are there any members of the public wishing to comment on items on the agenda?
Sir,
All right. So then we will go to the consent agenda. It has items A through K. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Roxanne, please call the roll.
Commissioner Bernstein,
aye.
Commissioner Freeman,
Aye.
Commissioner Kaplan,
Aye.
Vice President Grossberg,
yes,
President Ruttenberg.
I vote yes, and the motion carries. Financial forecast treasurer's report, Director Peters to present.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Okay, on your screen should be the financial forecast and treasurer's report for the period ended November 30th, 2021. And we're going to start off, as we always do, looking at our operating funds, which are our general and recreation funds. We can see at the end of November that our operating revenue is a little over $20 million versus our budget of a little over $18 million, for a surplus there between actual and budget of about $2.5 million. On the expense side, at the end of November, we are showing actual expenses about $1.5 million less than what we had budgeted them to be. So overall, when we consolidate those two differences, we are looking at a surplus of about $4 million better than where we had budgeted to be for the end of November. If we compare ourselves to the average of 3 pre-COVID years, 2017, 18, and 19, we're doing about $2.7 million better than we did in one of those average years. Some of the reasons for the revenue surplus here, again, we have those property taxes from 2020 that came in 2021 that could not be carried back. And we have several cost centers that are significantly exceeding where they had budgeted to be with their revenues at the end of November. On the expense side of things, a significant difference here is payroll to the tune of over $400,000, and then related insurance and pension costs of about another $600,000, making this difference up. And really, we're just going to look at the one slide today, and then we're just going to give you some of the specifics in our conclusion. So we'll just hop right on over to our concluding slide. And in conclusion, in January of 2021, remember that Park District programs and facilities were either closed or canceled due to mitigation effects. Since then, the Park District was able to significantly adjust its expenses, especially payroll, at over $400,000 below budget, resulting in roughly $4 million above budgeted net revenue for the period ended November 30th, 2021. Athletics has a surplus of roughly $281,000 more than budget. Camps is at $107,000 greater than budget. Tennis has a surplus of $464,000 greater than budget. Golf is at $762,000 more than budget. Recreation is at $219,000 more than budget. Westridge Center is at $125,000 more than budget, and Centennial Ice is at $161,000 more than budget. And in fact, all of our cost centers are, but one, are operating a surplus at month end. And so all of this places the Park District in a very favorable financial position at the end of November. Do we have any questions?
Cal,
I have no questions.
Brian,
No questions. Thank you.
Terry,
I'm good.
Jen,
None from me then.
I have no questions. It's an excellent report. I'm glad we're doing so well.
Okay, thank you.
So we will now go to the 2022 proposed budget and the budget and appropriation ordinance. Director Peters to present.
Okay, all right, so on your screen, you should see the budget book that was emailed out to you a few days ago. And we have reviewed the budget book several times now between board meetings and finance committee meetings, and we've looked at all the charts in there. We've highlighted a lot of the key pages. So this evening, we're really just going to touch on a few of the really just a very high level highlights of the budget book. So we're just going to start here briefly on page 7. We just always want to remind everyone that while the COVID-19 pandemic continues to challenge the district, we have remained fiscally healthy, and that is really important when we're looking at our budget and our results against the budget. We also have our acknowledgements that the 2021 budget is a collaborative effort that involves supervisors, managers, and support staff throughout the district. The budget will be reviewed continuously during the year, and we always report our results to you at least on a monthly basis at the monthly board meetings. And the budget could not have been accomplished without the efforts of Park District staff and the support of our Park Board commissioners. So thank you to everyone that helped us with the budget this year. We're going to jump down now to page 22 in the budget and just go over our schedule for the rest of the year and next year regarding the budget. We can see here on December 16th, here we are looking at the budget one last time before we lay it out for the public to review for 30 days. It is going to be online on our website. It will be at the Recreation Center, and it will be at the Highland Park Public Library for people to be able to go and look at it in person. Then on January 13th, we will have to publish in the newspaper, just like we did for the Truth and Taxation hearing. We have to publish that we're going to have a budget hearing on January 13th, and that hearing will take place at the January 25th board meeting. So at that meeting, we will have our public hearing, and then we will be voting on the 2022 budget and appropriation ordinance at that time. And then upon the passing of that, the next day we will take the budget and file it with the county offices up in Waukegan. Okay, we're gonna hop down to page 29. Okay, and then we wanted to just remind everyone too that when we look at the budget, we can see when we look historically that right now, presently, we have gone down just a tad from 7.0 last year to 6.9 this year as part of the entire property tax pie, so to speak. So when our rate percentage goes down, that means that some of the other taxing authorities' percentages must have increased. Okay, and now these two pages are some of the most important pages in the budget book. Table 1 is our entire proposed budget. It shows all 5 funds. It shows our revenues from all 5 of the funds of the district, as well as then we can go down and look at the expenditures for the district. And it is important to keep in mind that when we look at this $9.9 million, that this is a planned deficiency, which is due to our capital expenditures. We can see we are planning, budgeting to spend over $12.5 million. And then with the help of some granting money and other monies coming through the district, we were looking at hopefully to have a net capital spend of about $11.8 million. Table 1 is also important because it is a quick guide for you to look at transfers, the ins and outs between the funds. So we know we have to transfer in this $1.6 million to pay for the debt certificates. That comes from the general fund and the recreation fund. And then we plan on transferring another $3.5 million to the capital fund. We're going to take that $1 million from the general fund that we have discussed. We don't do very often, but we do have the money there to do that in 2022. $2 million from the recreation fund, and then another $500,000 from the special recreation fund. And then if we look at the next page, table 2, that is also another important table. It shows us where our fund balances are expected to be on January 1st, 2022. It also shows you that we would have roughly $37.7 million of cash overall. The revenues and expenses tie to what is in table 1 to get us down to our ending cash balance or fund balance. We can see the transfers here in totality, and of course they net out to 0. And so we anticipate ending 2022 with about $28 million in cash. We can also see in this chart our fund balances that we are budgeting to have in our funds. And to look into that a little bit more closely, then we have this chart down below, which is also a great resource. We can see the general fund has a policy of 25% for the fund balance. And we can see that we're budgeting the end of 2022 for that to be at 47%, which is pretty close to where we were back in 2018. We look at the recreation fund, again, that policy is 25%. And we can see at the end of 2022, even with budgeting that $1 million transfer to the capital fund, that our fund balance is greater than where we were pre-pandemic times. Now, it's not a problem. These balances, a little bit higher than what our policy is, but we want to remember we are in a pandemic and we are advised continuously to make sure we have a little bit of extra cushion in our operating funds in case things go south with the pandemic. And, we always need to keep maintaining things at the park district. So those higher fund balances are recommended. Special rec fund, we're at a 15% policy there. We're going to end 2022 at 36%. Again, this glaring percentage of 231% in 2020 is due to the NSSRA building of over $300,000. We were supposed to make that payment for that building. That got pushed off to 2021. And so what the board did is had us have a flat levy in 2020. So it was a 0% truth in taxation amount that we were able to accomplish by working with this non-tax cap fund and reducing the tax levy in this fund by about half. We can see that in 2021, that fund balance will be just a little bit over our policy, but it will then go up higher, not quite to where we were pre-pandemic, but still it will be, more than double of what our current policy is. So I think everything, when you look at these 2 pages together in the schedules here, this, speaks to the health of our fund balances and that we really have an appropriate budget going into 2022. And maybe, should I stop for questions or do you want me to keep going? Or I'll continue.
I think we should keep going.
Okay, all right. On page 36, this is the last table we're going to look at. This is table 3. We have tables 3 through 10 where we show comparatives of our budget to prior history within the district. And again, we've discussed this before, but we just want to keep in mind that normally we would compare ourselves to last year, but last year, which is this year, 2021, we know we budgeted for phase 4. So trying to compare a phase 5 or a new norm budget to phase 4 really won't make sense. Neither will trying to compare ourselves to, what took place during 2021, knowing that we were under pretty significant mitigations at the beginning of the year. We don't even show 2020 results in here because we know we had very severe mitigations in 2020 with the pandemic. And so we compare ourselves to the 2020 budget because that was prepared before the pandemic hit and before we expected it to come and affect us. When we look down at our surplus that we had in 2020, the 1.6 million versus the budgeted surplus of 1.8 million, we can see that we are budgeting for a roughly 14% increase in our surplus year over year. So that is a healthy increase there as well. So we are going to go now way to the end of the budget book to page 74. And this part of the budget book sums it all up. This is our ordinance for the combined budget and appropriation for fiscal year ending December 31st, 2022. This is the part of the budget that gets filed with the county. after it gets approved in January. We want to just point out these numbers in the budget column tie out to those numbers we just looked at in table 1. And then what we do is we take those numbers and we add 10% to each one, and that becomes what the appropriation is. So when we pass the budget and appropriation, basically what this means is if at some point during 22, after the first 6 months, we feel that we are going to exceed our expenses by 10%, we would have to amend our budget to allow us to do so. And then the only other thing I want to draw your attention to is page 77. And again, this summarizes the other table 2 we were looking at, but it basically shows where our cash balances, our reserves are at the beginning of the year at the 37.7 million. Again, these revenues and expenditures tie out to table 1, and it gets us to this ending cash number of 27.8 million, which makes sense knowing that we showed that 9.9 million planned deficiency in our spending. And that's all I have, unless we have any questions.
Well, that was very, very good, and thank you. Let's start with Jen. Do you have any questions? We'll go through the board.
None from me, thanks.
Terry?
I just have a question about the fund balance that we kind of concentrated on a little bit. If we had 20, if we were down to 25% on each one of those, let's say we were having consecutive normal years at 20 hadn't been crazy and we didn't budget 21 for continued crazy or whatever, and we had it. Do we know how much extra cash we would have?
You mean had 2020 and 21 been like a 2018 or 2019?
No. I forget I even said that, but it was relevant. No, if we just said, look, we just want to have 25% fund balance in each of our accounts. Okay. Do we know the gross amount of money that we would have instead of what we have now in those funds? Does that make sense? Like if we have, let's just look at in the general fund, we have in the budget 2022, we have a 47% fund balance on hand. If that number was 25%, how much less money would be in the fund balance? Okay, you can maybe do the math in your brain and you're better.
Right.
And if we accrued all of those numbers, I guess I have 2 questions. How much more money would there be and where would it go? Does that make sense or not?
The first one, I probably would want to get back to you on that so that I have more
I understand.
absolute
Yeah.
numbers. And I'm sorry, the second part,
All I'm saying,
Is let's say that number turns out to be $1 million. Let's say the difference between 47% of the budget and 25% of the budget was $1 million. I'm not saying it is. Where would then that $1 million, you would spread that money would have been placed in other places, right? I mean, we would find out where to spend that money, right?
Well,
if we had extra money.
Well, we have it. In other words, we already have extra money. That's why it's fund balance.
Yes,
But the fund balance is unusually high.
yes.
Okay. So if you reduced the fund balance to 25% in each account, how much money does that free up? That's the question.
Okay, and it would be roughly, I would call it $4 million.
$4 million. Okay. Now, so I'm not saying it's wise for us to do that, to go right to the limit. We never want to do that. But it's good to know that that's there. So if we wanted to reduce 47% to 37% or whatever like that, there'd be a way for us to know, to be perfectly honest and upfront, how much money that frees up in case we wanted it or needed it for something else.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, that's correct. Yes. I'm sorry, I wasn't following, but I get what you're saying now.
Okay. Sorry about that. That's
No,
my
that's okay.
non-MBA way of asking. Okay,
I got it. We're good.
Okay, that's it.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Jerry. Brian,
No, thank you.
Cal?
Thanks, Marilyn, for the presentation. I know we spent a lot of time on the budget, discussing the budget and reviewing it at the Finance Committee. Unfortunately, I left the office. I grabbed my old copy with my original notes from the previous draft. I know that there was some discussion regarding changing some of the narrative. I believe that's narrative, and I saw an email indicating that the changes were made. Could you just verify that? You don't have to go into detail what they were, but those changes were made to the narrative that we discussed with the Finance Committee?
Sure. So we changed to the paragraphs. I changed. It was asked that we made sure we clarify our verbiage to match what went along with the debt certificate issuance, saying that we could spend the money.
Yeah, you don't have to go into detail. I just want just yes or no. Were the changes made to the proposed?
Oh,
budget?
yes.
Okay.
Yes. They
Okay,
were.
that's all I need to know. Thank you
Okay.
very much.
Uh-huh.
Well, I have no questions. Marilyn, that was a very nice presentation and very much to the point. We appreciate that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So now we'll move to unfinished business, and we're still going to stay with Director Peters, it looks like.
Yes.
Approval of ordinance 2021-06 supplemental tax levy for debt service for 2021.
Yes. All right. And so for this, I think we have discussed this. Well, I don't think I know. We have discussed this very many times, and we even had Mr. Lewis from PMA here to discuss it with us too. But we'll just have a quick refresher. So pursuant to the provisions of property tax extension limitation law, which we also call PTAL, the district cannot levy taxes to pay the bonds outstanding in excess of the amount of the district's debt service extension base. So that's also called DSEB. So in certain levy years, such as the year we're in right now, the principal of an interest due on the bonds exceeded the amount of the DSEB at the time of the issuance of the bonds. So if and when the DSEB increases, such as this year, the district has the authority, in accordance with provisions of the Park Code, to adopt a supplemental levy, increasing the amount of taxes levied to pay the bonds up to the amount of the DSEB. And so that's what this supplemental tax levy is doing. It's asking us to square away that difference, which is $19,290.76.
Okay. Do we have any questions? I'll start with Cal, who is as close as we come to an MBA.
Move for approval.
Is there a motion to approve ordinance 2021-06 supplemental tax levy for debt service for 2021, representing the district's additional request for property taxes to be received in 2022 for the debt service fund? The amount of the supplemental levy is $19,290.76. Cal has moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Let's ask, is there any discussion of the motion?
I have a master's in music education, so that moves me in front of Ken.
Okay, Roxanne, please call the roll on that note. You get it? Get that note?
That was good.
Commissioner Bernstein,
Aye.
Commissioner Freeman,
Aye.
Commissioner Kaplan,
Aye.
Vice President Grossberg,
Yes.
President Ruttenberg.
I vote yes as well. The motion carries. Okay. Now we go for approval of ordinance 2021-07 tax levy for 2021. And guess who presents it?
It looks like me again.
Yep.
So with this one, we have also discussed many times prior to this evening. So we're just going to very briefly recap. Our tax levy has three components. There's a levy for the general fund, which is $5.8 million. There is a levy for recreation purposes, which is $5.5 million. And then we have the levy for handicap recreation purposes, which we call our special recreation fund, and that's just shy of $1 million, for a total of $12,381,667. Does anyone have any questions?
Hearing no questions and no hands going up, is there a motion to approve ordinance 2021-07, tax levy ordinance for 2021, representing the district's request for property taxes to be received in 2022? The amount of the levy is $12,381,667, exclusive of debt service.
I move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second,
All right.
10 seconds.
Okay, good, good. Roxanne, you set the, get this one, tone for us to progress with things. Was that good, Terry?
Mhm.
Roxanne, please call the roll.
Commissioner Bernstein,
Aye.
Commissioner Freeman,
Aye.
Commissioner Kaplan,
Aye.
Vice President Grossberg,
Yes.
President Ruttenberg.
I vote yes as well. The motion is carried.
Okay, thank you.
Mary Lynn, I think you're off the hook now, aren't you?
Yes,
Yes, you
ma'am.
can go drink coffee.
Okay,
All right.
thank you.
Approval of the 2022 license agreement with the North Shore Yacht Club. Director Carr to present.
Good evening, everybody, and thank you, President Ruttenberg and Board of Commissioners. I'll try to be as efficient as Director Peters on my topics here. Tonight, talking and providing an update and staff recommendation regarding the 2022 license agreement with the North Shore Yacht Club. These draft agreements were presented at the December 7th workshop meeting. So tonight, I thought I'd just give a quick summary of that presentation as well as provide the recommendation for the board to consider. So the license agreement between the Yacht Club and the Park District is on an annual term. The current agreement does expire on December 31. Park District staff have worked closely with the Yacht Club representatives on the development of the 2022 agreement that started back in September. We use the current agreement as the template to work from, and the intent of the agreement is basically to provide framework around what the licensed facilities are, what the fees are, when they'll be paid, how the facilities are managed and maintained, as well as just general rules and regulations. Notable changes to the agreement for 2022 are the license fee is scheduled to be at $7,140. That represents a 5% increase from 2021. It includes a memorandum of understanding in the term of the agreement, and that's related to the improvement fee for the breakwater. A prorated refund of the license fee if the yacht club has inability to access the licensed facility due to construction of the breakwater. Adding a definition of dates to the boating season, and that's going to help the Park District in management of the property. This agreement has been reviewed by the Park District Legal Counsel, and staff tonight is recommending approval from the Park Board of Commissioners to authorize the Executive Director to enter into the 2022 license agreement with the North Shore Yacht Club. So I'm happy to take any questions that might be on this agenda item.
All right. Jen,
None from me.
Terry,
No, I'm good.
Brian,
Good.
Cal?
I have no questions, just a quick comment. I just wanted, for full disclosure, I am a member of the North Shore Yacht Club, and I do believe that that does not prohibit me from moving forward and voting on this matter.
You didn't recuse yourself?
Accusing myself.
I don't know that he has to, but let's recuse yourself just for formality. Is there a motion authorizing the Executive Director to enter into the 2022 license agreement with the North Shore Yacht Club?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Jen, Terry, okay, good. Is there any further discussion on the motion? Hearing none, Roxanne, please call the roll.
Commissioner Freeman,
Aye.
Commissioner Kaplan,
Aye.
Vice President Grossberg,
Yes.
President Ruttenberg.
I vote yes. We note that Commissioner Bernstein recused himself. The motion carries. Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry.
We'll just abstain. That's fine.
Okay, he abstains.
Okay.
Okay.
Right. That goes into the third column, the one we never used before, Roxanne, so.
Thank you.
Now, approval of the 2022 Memorandum of Understanding with the North Shore Yacht Club. Director Carr.
So just a continuation here, as referenced in that license agreement, the memorandum of understanding document was developed to provide framework and expectations regarding the yacht club commitment of contributing $200,000 over the term of 20 years to support the breakwater. The agreement is contingent upon the Park District approving the construction contracts of the breakwater and launch ramp replacement. The initial payment would be scheduled of $10,000 would be scheduled to be due on April the 1st of 2022, and then would be due on that same year, that same day each year of the term. If the breakwater or launch ramp project is canceled or not complete within 20 years, the yacht club would be refunded the improvement fees paid to the Park District. This agreement also has been reviewed by Park District Council, and staff is also recommending approval tonight from the Park Board of Commissioners to authorize the Executive Director to enter into the 2022 Memorandum of Understanding Agreement with the North Shore Yacht Club.
Thank you. Is there a motion authorizing the Executive Director to enter into the 2022 Memorandum of Understanding Agreement with the North Shore Yacht Club?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion of this Memorandum of Understanding? Okay, hearing none. Roxanne, please call the roll.
Commissioner Bernstein,
Like the previous matter, I'm going to abstain due to my membership with the yacht, in the yacht club.
Commissioner Kaplan,
Aye.
Commissioner Freeman,
Aye.
Vice President Grossberg. Terry,
Yes.
President Ruttenberg.
I vote yes as well. The motion carries. Thank you. Oh, we're still with Mitch.
Yeah.
Okay. 2022 affiliated and sponsored organizations update.
Okay.
Director
Yes,
Carr.
thank you. So this is an update and recommendation regarding sponsored and affiliate organizations. Staff did provide a comprehensive update to the Rec Committee on December the 7th, and this is a summarized version really of that presentation. Sponsored and affiliate groups have been identified as community organizations that can best serve specific interests of Highland Park residents. Furthermore, it's in the best interest of the Park District to establish working relationships and agreements with these groups in an effort to meet the recreation and leisure needs of the community. To this end, the Park District has established a policy regarding these relationships with affiliated and sponsored organizations. This policy was most recently updated and approved in 2019 and provides definitions, requirements, and benefits for both types of organizations. So a quick summary, the affiliated organizations are provided at no charge or at a reasonable fee if there are direct cost or revenue loss to the district facility space. And they must have at least 51% of their members or participants and or their activities of the organization residing or serving the residents of the Park District. Sponsored organizations have the same benefits as the affiliated organizations, but in addition, may be provided some in-kind administrative or professional services, and in some instances, limited financial assistance. In addition, they must have 90% of their members or participants and or activities of the sponsored organization residing or serving the residents of Highland Park. As part of the
Hey,
annual,
Mitch,
yes,
can you repeat that number, please? I didn't hear.
yeah. So for the sponsored organizations, it's 90% of their members or participants and or activities of the sponsored organizations reside or serving the residents of Highland Park.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
That's okay. As part of the annual review process, these organizations submitted applications. They were due on October the 30th. The staff reviewed them in the month of November. Staff received 4 applications requesting affiliate status, and they were the American Youth Soccer Organization, or commonly known as AYSO, the Highland Park Aquatics Club, or HPAC, the Highland Park Pops, and Uptown Theater of Highland Park. Description of the services that are provided by those organizations and the tenure of their relationship with the Park District has been provided tonight in the memo. All 4 of these organizations do meet the criteria for affiliate status renewal. Additionally, there were 2 organizations who submitted for sponsored organization status. They were the Highland Park Players and the Highland Park Strings. Similar to the affiliates, we have provided a summary of the services and tenure of the relationship with the Park District in tonight's memo. The strings have requested administrative support and a $15,000 stipend. They do meet the requirements by policy of a sponsored organization. Previous funding history, which was requested by the rec committee. Going back to 2012, the strings have been provided a total of $196,000. No funding was provided in 2021 due to the pandemic. The Highland Park players have requested facility space for the rehearsals and their auditions and a $5,000 stipend. They currently do not meet the requirements per policy of the sponsored organization. However, they do meet the requirements of an affiliate status. Since 2012, the players have received $40,000 in financial assistance, and similar to the strings, no funding was provided in 2021. At the Recreation Committee meeting, staff recommended approving all 4 of the applicants for affiliate status, as well as the Highland Park players as an affiliate organization for 2022, since they didn't meet the requirements of the sponsored organization. Staff further recommended approval of the Highland Park strings as a sponsored organization and continue to provide them in-kind services instead of the financial stipend. Staff left our recommendation tonight open for discussion based on the materials provided to the board. Ultimately, right, it is hard to for staff to justify recommending a stipend to organizations right now when our programs and services are charging fees to cover the direct cost. So that's why we came to the recommendation that we did. So this concludes the summary of the presentation, and happy to answer any questions or throw it to you for the discussion.
I'll call upon the board members, but I wasn't clear about one thing. You said that the players asked for a $5,000 stipend. Is that within the proposal of their agreement now?
It's in the budget of their agreement.
So it's if we sign the agreement as written, we give them $5,000.
I'm sorry. That was in their application. No, in the agreement, we've placed them as a affiliate with no stipend.
No stipend. Okay. Thank you. Well, let's ask if there's any questions of the board members for the affiliate approvals. And let me start with Brian.
I have no question on the affiliate approvals. They are all just asking for space and or discounts, it looks like. Is that correct, Mitch?
That's correct.
And the other one asking for discounts is the Highland Park Aquatics Club, as I read this.
Correct.
And AYSO actually pays for what they reimburse us for direct expenditures.
They maintain the fields themselves, basically.
Okay.
They pay nothing and maintain the field at Olson.
So they're just asking for use of our fields that aren't being used anyway.
Correct.
Okay, I have no issues with the 4 affiliate organization applications.
Okay, Jen,
No, given what Brian just covered there, I have no question.
Terry,
No, not with the affiliates.
Calvin.
Nothing with the affiliates.
All right. Is there a motion authorizing executive director to enter into the 2022 affiliate organization agreements for items A through E?
So moved.
Second,
I'm sorry, who second?
I did. Brian,
Thank you. All right, Roxanne, please call the roll.
Commissioner Bernstein,
Aye.
Commissioner Freeman,
Aye.
Commissioner Kaplan,
I,
Vice President Grossberg,
excuse me.
Yes,
President Ruttenberg.
I vote aye, the motion carries. And now we've had the presentation. So is there a motion authorizing, before I do that, let's pause and we'll talk about the approval of the Highland Park Strings Sponsored Organization Agreements before we get a motion, because there's a blank in there. Let's ask the commissioners to give views, starting with Jen for this one.
In terms of just the stipends in general, I mean, is that what we're talking about now generally, or?
Well, no, it's for this one. they requested a $15,000 stipend.
Yeah,
And the proposal has a blank for whether it's 0 to 15,000, I assume.
Right, and I guess I just, generally speaking, I mean, I know we talked a little bit about not wanting to pull the rug out from under them in terms of budgeting at the last second when they expect something for this year. But it seems incongruous with our mission, and so I'm just wondering how many other park districts give stipends for things like this? Do we know?
So I know that Brian reached out to a few of our neighboring districts, in particular from the rec committee. I know Deerfield was one that we reached out to, but we also did reach out to some other neighboring ones, and we did not find at this time that any district provides their affiliates or sponsored with financial assistance. The one exception to that was one organization within Glenview that I'm sorry, Glencoe, that can't remember the name of that organization. Brian, you might remember it, but it was that was the only example that we could come up with.
Yeah, and it was a youth services organization, but that was all the information that I really had on it. And it was roughly it varied per year to year based on what their needs were, and it was roughly $10,000 based on what their financial need was. But they run that program, I think, in tandem with the park district, and so. But that was the only one. All others do charge for direct expenses from our research.
Okay, that was really my big question at this point. Thanks.
All right, Brian?
Yeah, I'll be more blunt. I am against giving an affiliate or a sponsor organization a stipend. And part of it is, this is taxpayer money. I don't think it's our place to give taxpayer money to organizations. They want administrative services, they want space, they need help. That's fine, but giving taxpayer money, I think, is wrong. Always have, always will. I'm also kind of wondering, we've asked for their budget. I've asked for over a year now, haven't seen it. So I don't know what they do or they don't do. I also know we've talked about the sponsor organizations coming before us, so we can ask them these questions ourselves. I think the sponsor organizations in my 10 years on the board have been in before us once. But I'm against, we're Parks and Rec, but I'm against giving money to any organization.
Okay,
That's all I got.
thank you. Terry?
When I spoke at the last meeting about it, I was following Cal, and I actually would like to hear Cal only because he brought up a timing issue. But I'm trying to remember exactly how he put it. So rather than try to speak for him, if he could go first, then I will follow him.
All right. Cal, would you like to go first?
Yes, I guess I'm actually going third now.
Yeah.
Instead of the question I have is for Mitch. Is this time sensitive? Does this have to be decided tonight?
So the agreements are on an annual term. They could, and again, I'll defer to Brian if he needs to interject, but I believe if this was one that needed to be deferred another month, this is not something that right now they're requesting space from us and like need the space in January. The strings are specifically asking for the stipend itself. So if we didn't give it to them in December and needed more time to think about it, we certainly could get back to them and let them know it's being considered at a later date if it was specific to the strings, whereas some of the other affiliates are needing the space in January, so we need the agreement in place.
Well, I believe that we've already voted to approve the other affiliates
Yes.
in that contract, so that's not part of the agenda item we're talking about. What I brought up at the finance, I believe we talked about this at the finance committee, was that that meeting was on a Tuesday, I believe, or a Wednesday, and I asked Mitch when the strings were notified that this was going to be maybe an issue, and the staff was recommending not to fund the stipend, and we were advised at the finance committee that that was just 2 days prior on Monday. So at that point, I thought that it was unfair to an organization that we have been supporting for the last 9 years to give them less than 48 hours notice that a significant portion of their budget was going to be removed. And I did have an opportunity to look at their budgets. It was circulated by our executive director, and what I saw is even with the $15,000 stipend, that they're operating at a deficit of at least $5,000, and I believe it was roughly about a 15%, and I could be wrong, but I don't have it in front of me, a 15% budget deficit. So this would removing this on very short notice would really blow a hole in their budget. And without the ability of them to address the board and inviting them to the board, I would not be in favor of moving forward with the item with regard to the strings, because they do qualify as a sponsored organization, unless we give them an opportunity to come and present their case to the board and also discuss what alternative funding mechanisms they may be able to put into place to replace the potential removal of the stipend that they've been counting on for the last 9 or 10 years. So since it's not time sensitive that it has to be decided tonight, I would suggest that with regard to the strings, that we table that matter, we push it to the workshop meeting in January, invite them to make a presentation. If they choose to make a presentation, great. If they don't, and they're ready to move on, then that makes our job a little easier. But I am, as I said at the finance committee meeting, I am not in favor of removing a significant portion of their funding, whether I'm not making a judgment whether it's the right thing or wrong thing. I think is the fact is that they qualify, and a vast majority of their members are members of the district, that I think it's patently unfair to give them less than 48 hours notice that this could possibly happen. So I see no reason why we have to move forward with that item tonight, and I would prefer to invite them to make a presentation.
Thank you, Cal. Terry?
Yeah, so I'm glad I let him speak first, because I couldn't remember all of what he said, but I know that it was important. So yes, I would like to do the Cal Bernstein plan when it comes to this. I also would want to know, so can you tell me how we have supported? Have we always given them money, the strings?
So from the financial standpoint, I was able to go back to 2012. That we may have supported them before then. I'm not certain of that. I'm not sure if Brian would know that, but as far as our financial records, it allowed us to go back to 2012, and so we know what we have given them since that point.
Okay.
Yeah, and they've been around for 40 some years, so we've financially supported them longer than that. Correct.
Okay. So what exactly are you asking of us right now? And are we amenable to pushing whatever that is back till January?
Well, could I jump in and suggest that perhaps at this point we could enter into an agreement with them with no financial support, so that they have the agreement for facilities and support, and then we can address in January with them making a presentation the question of financial support. This way we'd give them some assurance that they would have rehearsal facilities and other support that we would give an affiliate. Is there any feeling to do that? Let me ask Cal, because he's the one who suggests that we defer this completely.
I would ask our executive director if that is something that we could do, since there's a blank in the agreement, can the agreement be approved with a blank and then subsequently amended if the board does decide to provide them some funding, that we would then, what's the mechanism to make that happen?
Well, I think I can answer that. We can approve it with no stipend. And then in January or February, when it comes up, we can amend the agreement. There's nothing to prohibit us from amending a document. Brian Romes, Executive Director, is that correct?
I would agree.
Okay, so then my suggestion is that we move forward with the agenda item tonight with the condition that the strings be invited to make a presentation to the board. If they decide to make that presentation, we'll consider at a future board meeting an agenda item of whether or not to provide the funding consistent with the historical relationship between the park district and the string. And with that condition, I would be comfortable moving forward.
All right, so in essence, we have a condition that, we put in a 0 stipend at this point. Is there a motion then to authorize the executive director to enter into the 2022 sponsored organization agreement with the Highland Park Strings with a financial stipend of 0 and the condition that they're invited to make a presentation to us for us to consider and discuss the possibility of a stipend in January or February?
So moved. So a second.
Okay, Roxanne, please call the roll.
Commissioner Bernstein,
Just real quick, just for a matter of what we need to do. So there probably should be, because of the way it was listed on the agenda, I think there needs to be a motion and a second to change the actual motion as it was in the packet. And it sounds like you have a motion and a second to change it, and then you can vote on it.
Okay, so I
so you
move.
want a motion-
Well, actually,
Okay.
wait. Actually, because the material had a stipend of $blank, what we're doing is approving that with a $blank continuing in the agreement.
Okay, I think that should work.
Okay, so we have that motion, we have a second, and now Roxanne would please call the roll, starting with our music instructor, please.
Yeah,
Vice President Grossberg,
Yeah,
okay, yes.
this is your wheelhouse, pal.
Commissioner Bernstein,
Aye.
Commissioner Freeman,
Aye.
Commissioner Kaplan,
Aye.
President Ruttenberg.
Yes, I vote yes also. Did you notice I threw Terry off? I'm sorry, the motion carries. Did you notice I threw Terry off enough that he said aye instead of yes?
I don't like it. I want us to all live in harmony.
Oh, good.
There
You
you go.
picked that up. All right. We'll tend towards new business now. Board meeting, Executive Director Romes to present.
Sure. So this was added to the agenda at the request of Commissioner Freeman to discuss committee meeting options as well as meeting options for consideration for 2022, such things as in-person or virtual or some type of a hybrid. So certainly want to allow the opportunity for Commissioner Freeman to open any discussion, and I'm happy to also provide some context. I did send out an email to the board with some different options to consider, but certainly want to turn it over to Commissioner Freeman to present on any recommendations or for discussion.
Thanks for listening, everybody, but I have sensed a little bit of possible fatigue and frustration and possible repetitive discussion and things like that from the number of committee meetings that we have. Not that the subject matter isn't important to discuss in committee, but perhaps we could consolidate a few of the committees and have them meet with different frequency based on need would be one suggestion that I have. And I think that in sort of looking around and what our counterparts are doing, like 113, for example, with their board, if we did seem to express initially, I know Barney has concerns about meeting in person and he brought those up, and that's how we're virtual. But with boosters and things like that, and keeping an eye on variants heading into the new year, I'd like to consider the option to meet in person in reading, kind of what the caveats are for joining virtually. It could be a work issue, am I right, Brian? Or it could be a health, we don't want anybody showing up even with the sniffles kind of thing. But allowing the flexibility for some of us to meet in person if that's what we would like to do. So I kind of wanted to open the discussion, and all of this is with, the idea of working more efficiently and making sure that we're all on the same page when receiving information and that kind of thing. And certainly I'm open to additional suggestions, but that was my jumping off point for bringing this up and adding it to the agenda.
Well,
But before we go there, there's two things that were just being introduced, and let me just go and mention. The first is to reduce or combine the committees to 4 committees, and we'll come to the second part in a minute. And Brian, I think you circulated this to everybody that, if not, let me read it. Finance Committee would meet quarterly or as needed. We'd have a Facility and Recreation Committee to meet monthly or as needed. Parks, Lakefront, and Natural Areas, it's a combination, to meet monthly or as needed. And a Policy Committee to meet quarterly or as needed. And then another bullet point that followed is an option to include at the board meetings an agenda item for committee updates, which would be a quick synopsis of any meeting in which 5 commissioners did not attend, and we wouldn't have to repeat what we all heard at a meeting if we were all in attendance. So I think let's talk about that. Is there any objection to consolidating the committees and having that schedule?
No objection.
Jen?
No objection from me.
Terry?
No.
Cal?
I don't have an objection. I just don't know. I would like to hear from staff of how they came up with that recommendation. What's the basis? Is it just ad hoc, or what's the methodology behind the recommendation? And there's one more thing I'd like to talk about, is also the time of these meetings at 4 o'clock, which is very problematic.
Okay, well, let's let Brian address oh, by the way, currently we have 6 committees. This is a consolidation of a couple of the committees. So I certainly think that's well. But Brian, do you want to
Sure.
discuss this?
I will be delighted to. So yes, that's correct. There are currently 6 committees, and with the objective to reduce that number, there were a few committees that seemed to have synergy that could be combined. And the 2 that we combined, or I should say, currently there's a facility meeting, which focuses on, obviously, mostly our indoor facilities. And then there's a recreation committee, which focuses on the programs in those facilities as well as outside. And so we thought there was some synergy in just combining those. Recreation has only been meeting every other month, and there weren't as many topics. So thought there was some natural synergy to combine those 2 together, since they work hand in hand. And then we've had a Lakefront Committee, and then we had a Parks and Natural Areas Committee. Again, our parks crew maintains the parks, the lakefront, and the natural areas. So again, there's some synergies between those committees, and we could combine those. Again, Lakefront lately has been meeting every month. Parks and Natural Areas have been meeting about every other month. So there was just some natural synergies there. Finance Cal, I know you brought it up at numerous finance committee meetings. We were meeting pre-COVID about once a quarter. And then once we got into COVID, we started meeting twice a month. Then as we became more comfortable with our financial position, they were reduced to once a month. And I think you've made a notion on whether or not we need to meet as often for that meeting. So I just suggested that we go back to quarterly, but we could certainly adjust and meet more often if needed. Certainly during budget time, we need to meet a little bit more often, but generally speaking, quarterly. And then policy has been meeting quarterly. So that was the rationale behind meeting the objective that was asked.
I would just say that, it's not just the committee meetings that it's totality of our interaction as board members, because the results of having these committee meetings is that there's been extensive discussions about certain specific issues. And then when we get to the workshop or to the regular monthly meeting, those meetings have been much shorter because we've been able to, we're not going to repeat what was discussed at the committee meetings. In addition, because of the Zoom setting, it's easier for commissioners to meet because obviously we don't have to go to West Ridge to do it. So, in the world of not, I think we've had too many meetings. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I have meeting fatigue as a result of the last 2 years. But I think but on the other hand, there's been a lot of good work that's been done at the committee level. And I think that we have to find that happy medium so that we can do a deep dive, so to speak, in certain important issues at the committee meetings, and then be able to report to the board at the workshops or the monthly meetings. I would mention that you're looking at the finance committee. I think it's because of the staff and the other members. It's not because of its chairman has done very good work over the last couple of years and since we formed it. And I think it's been it's contributed a lot to the structure of the district and the financial health of it. I can envision moving forward because of the major projects we have going on, especially Centennial and West Ridge, that the facility committee is going to be a very important body moving forward, and may have to meet a little bit more often because we're undertaking 2 major projects in the next 2 years. So I think that I'm all in favor of limiting the meetings, but the consequence of reducing the amount of the committee meetings, I just want to make sure everyone understands and is fine with it, is we're probably going to have longer board meetings with more items on the agenda, with a greater discussion and probably longer staff presentations and greater discussion. It's like, anything, there's a give and a take, and that's probably going to be the result. I'm fine with either, but I just want to make sure everyone understands, how, I think we got a little carried away with the committee meetings, and I think, pulling back is probably a good thing. So I'm all in favor of that. And then we also have to talk about the time, because
wait, let's do one thing. Let's do one thing first. Okay. I just want to say, is there anybody who, just speak up, who has any objection to reducing down to the 4 committees?
No objection.
None.
Terry?
No.
Okay. I don't either. I would just like to say that I think that we might want to have the finance committee meet every 2 months, just to get it, because there's so much that flows through it. That would be my recommendation for the one change to the schedule. Would that be acceptable to the commissioners?
Yes.
Sure. I think just consolidating the number of committees already takes the meetings off the calendar. So I was going to say every other month might be a good idea for finance.
Okay. Terry, okay?
Yeah.
Cal?
That's good.
Okay. So now, Cal, what time, let's talk about the time for the meetings. We'll get to the other point, Jen, I assure you. What time should the meetings start and what days of the week do we want the meetings? Let's start with time.
I think with time, 4 o'clock is just, I mean, I know we did that on a certain, we started doing 4 o'clock. Yeah, I mean, I'm still working at 4 o'clock. I'm sorry. And unfortunately, and sometimes at these meetings, as has been witnessed over the last couple of months, I sometimes miss things that are happening at these meetings because I get pulled. I'm sitting in my office and I'm multitasking. It'd be easier for me, just speaking about myself, is that if the finance, and I want to be sensitive to staff. I don't want the staff, staying too long. I think 5 o'clock is the more appropriate time to start the committee meetings. And I would not be objectional moving forward if you want to do board meetings at 5:30. The city council right now meets at 5:30. I'd be fine with that too. But so as long as we're still continuing in the Zoom setting, because there's no transportation, there's no time.
Good point.
John.
All right, so let's just ask, is there anybody who has an objection to a 5 o'clock start time for the committee meetings?
No objection.
No,
None.
Okay, so then Cal brought up that we start our board meetings at 5:30. So let's add that into the mix as a discussion. Would that be acceptable to the commissioners to start our board meetings at 5:30?
Not if they're live.
I'm
I want to
sorry.
hear what our executive director says about that too, because obviously. his
I
staff
want
is
to
out.
get everybody's
Yeah.
view. I was
Yeah,
going
okay.
to.
Okay.
If they're live, 5:30 is too early. Hello,
And you're commuting from the city. Hopefully you'll be commuting from the city soon.
I mean, 5:30 is early.
Should we keep it at 6? Why don't we keep it at 6? Just, and if we have an occasional reason to have an earlier meeting, we can do that. But is there any objection just keeping it at 6 then?
no,
I'm fine.
Jen,
No objection.
Executive Director Romes?
No objections.
Well, just, Cal wants you to opine to this. All right, I have a different question. We're getting to Jen's next. Is there a day of the week that is better to have our board meetings in lieu of Tuesday? I mean, if I were to vote, I would love Wednesday under all other circumstances, but I am only one voice.
Wednesday would work best for me.
I thought that, Brian, you had mentioned before that you had kind of planned out your activity schedule on Tuesday, so you were resident to move from that, because I kind of started thinking about that too.
Well, when we go back to work staggered, Wednesday will be my home day.
I just don't know what I don't know. That's the thing. I mean, I have other things. And I'd hate to say, yes, I don't mind moving to Wednesdays, and then all of a sudden Wednesdays become a problem. But, if the majority of the board wants to do it, I just would like you to be flexible if I suddenly say, whoa, boys and girls, this has turned out to be not good because of X, Y, and Z, I guess is all I'm saying.
And we can always revisit it.
Yeah,
Jen-
as of right now, Wednesday is okay.
Right.
I mean, I would
Jen?
mention, I'm sorry, Jen.
Oh, yeah, Wednesday is actually marginally better for me. I can do it.
Calvin?
And for me, I work evenings, like, for example, tonight I have to leave in 10 minutes to go to another meeting. So Monday, Tuesdays, and Thursdays are generally my meeting nights when I work evenings. And so Wednesday is obviously the best. Over my tenure on the board, I've had to leave meetings and miss meetings because of my work schedule. So I seem not to have meetings on Wednesday nights.
All right, so Brian Romes, are we okay with Wednesdays?
Yeah, we will have to meet our first meeting in January on Tuesday, and then we will have to vote on a new board meeting schedule going forward. So,
Okay. All right, let's consider that. Okay, then the next thing is meeting options. I'll start. Personally, given the COVID and the increased COVID that we're hearing from the Omicron, I just would not attend meetings. And I think that we have a lot of value about using our Zoom facility, and I would want to stay virtual the way we've been doing. But let's go around the room. Brian?
All things being equal, I don't disagree with you, but I think that we are better as a board meeting in person. I think what Brian Rome showed us was there were some hybrids out there. And maybe we try that, but I'd like to know, someone like Cal, if staff is comfortable coming to meetings, because it's not just us. And if it's going to be staff in other offices and Jen and I in a meeting room, then we might as well just stay the way we are.
Isn't staff already in the building for work though? Everybody is in person, right, Brian?
Yes, correct. Yeah, it would not have an impact from that standpoint on staff. Staff could, yeah, so no impact.
But Brian, are you in different rooms?
No,
You're all in the same room
when we meet, yes.
right now?
No, not right now, no.
Yeah,
That's virtual.
That's what I meant.
Right, but it's for regular department meetings, we're in
Okay.
person. Yeah,
All right, Terry?
you're muted, Terry.
I know.
I'm sorry.
My dog's, anyways. I have always been in favor of meeting in person. I just think we are, like Brian said, we are just a better board when we're together and we can look each other in the eye and see this stuff. So I would prefer to do it. I think that there is a reasonable way to do this where everybody can feel safe. And if we return to a situation where we can't be, together again, then we can always revisit it, like we keep saying. So
I think the consensus is, did I miss anybody? I don't know. Did I ask Cal? I missed Cal. Sorry, I missed you, Cal.
So Jen and I had talked about this last week about this, and I agree with the consensus of the board that we function better when we are together, and things have some things have slipped through the cracks, and I'm not pointing fingers. It's just that some focus on certain matters has lacked because of the format that we're dealing with. I'm not blaming anybody. I think if I blame anybody, it's the pandemic and the Zoom format. However, yesterday the CDC came out and said that January can be a very bad month. So I think the goal is, I think the goal is to meet in person. I think that, I think we have to be a little sensitive to what the CDC said. I think it was yesterday they came out and said that about January being potentially a really bad month. I think maybe we should see what happens over the next couple of weeks after the holidays and people getting together with regard to how COVID spreads. The numbers are going back up significantly. So I think that, and then that also brings to the question, if we do this too soon, I was in New York last weekend. You go anywhere indoors, you have to show your Vax card. And I don't know if we want to start doing that if we start moving this indoors.
Well, we are going to talk about that tonight.
Okay. So I won't, because I'm leaving in about 5 minutes.
I realize.
But I think that I think that it's a noble goal, and I think that I really looking forward to being with all of you and the staff. I miss the staff tremendously. So I think maybe let's talk about that and over the next 30 days to try to evolve into a hybrid so we can ease into a meeting in person. But I want to see what happens over the next couple of weeks with regard to this. What's it called? I don't even, the Delta now, it's the what?
Omicron.
Look, I want to see what happens over the next 2 weeks, because and what the CDC said yesterday, it could be really bad.
And I have family in New York who's maybe going to cancel their plans to come to Chicago. So I would like to agree with, we continue at least through the next meeting, which is early January, and then we can revisit that. Is that okay with our commissioners and the staff?
I think we could talk about this like on a meeting by meeting basis, because I think things are changing so rapidly. So maybe we do it that way.
All right, is it okay then with everybody that we continue this virtual process through at least the next meeting?
Yes, it's fine with me.
Jen? Brian? I got it. Brian Kaplan?
Sorry, yes, that's fine with me. Thank you.
Okay. I think we go to the Parks Foundation update. Next.
All right, hold on. Hold on.
Oh, and by the way, I have to comment that Commissioner Bernstein is going to have to leave our meeting in about 5 minutes.
So Barney, can I say a couple of things?
Yes, please.
Before we get
All
there?
right.
Because I'm going to be gone for about 15, 20 minutes. And I don't know if the meeting will, if you'll get done, finish the agenda in that 20 minutes. I will try to come back, assuming my matter gets taken care of quickly. But I do want to say, this is the last meeting of the year. And if I don't come back to finish the meeting, I want to thank everybody for ushering us, for helping us usher through another tough year with COVID. And, it takes a village, as Hillary Clinton said. And I think the village is our staff and our community. And we've worked together to make everything very, very successful, as Mary Lynn talked about financially, but also from, if you look at the numbers we were doing in all these different facilities, it's a testament to our staff that's we've been able to accomplish that. We've done a lot. And I think that we have a lot to do next year too. So I'm looking forward to it. I got a lot of energy, and I just want to wish everybody happy holidays, a happy new year, and we'll see you next year. So hopefully I'll be back and be able to say this all again. But thank
All right,
you.
thank you for the kind words. I think you echo everybody's thoughts on that. So now we can go to Terry for our Parks Foundation update.
Yes, I was finally able to attend one of their meetings. It's been kind of a crazy schedule. There was a lot of talk about the Park Avenue Boat Facility fundraising. So they have a lot invested in that. And they mentioned that a matching donor had committed up to $250,000 after a base amount had been committed by others. So that's exciting. They've received $3,500 a grant from the Community Foundation to fund the Learn to Swim lessons and camp scholarships. We had requested $10,000, and I still think that the Community Foundation can be petitioned to give us more, just frankly. There was a lot of talking about the way, sort of the paradigm moving forward. As you may all know, we had Brian, what was the young lady who wants the park up in High Ridge? What's her name again?
Is that Linda?
No, her first name is Katie, and I don't want to butcher her last name. So
Okay, so Katie
Katie.
Katie made an appearance at our foundation meeting. We're trying to get her on that foundation board, but she's a real go-getter and very, very smart, and is assembling a group that may be able to help fundraise, et cetera, et cetera. So she came both to sort of tell her story to the foundation, and to also tell of the need for a park up in the High Ridge area. So that was interesting to me. We talked a lot about SMILE and the difference between SMILE and our Highwood FYI program, which is the swimming program for kids that go to school with our Highland Park kids, but are happen to be residents of Highwood. What else, Brian, or is Liz on this call here?
I think that is a great summation of the meeting.
Yeah, there was one other thing I just want to talk about, that we did talk a little bit about social media and about Google and about having the foundation have a bigger presence. When you put Parks Foundation in your Google search, we want to try to get in there higher up than others. Sorry, go ahead, Brian.
No, I think that's all great there. Working on their strategic plan, I think you may have alluded to that a little bit for this coming year, and in really trying to narrow down their focus. Obviously, they have a strong emphasis on the SMILE program, providing scholarships for residents, and then the FYI program, providing scholarships for non-residents who are in financial need, and those continue to be a very strong focus. But obviously, there's been a large shift towards capital project campaigns, so they're working on how to prioritize those and gather more residents who have special interests. And then hopefully they're bringing back a couple events next year, the Champions Banquet and potentially the golf outing. So trying to figure out logistics with that. But I think they're excited for 2022 and to get out into the community and make an impact. So I think that's it.
Well, that's great. Thank you. Before we go to the director's report, I think I'd like to change the agenda. Well, let's go to this now. Brian, you raised the question at the beginning of the meeting about vaccination cards and the communications we've been getting from members of the public. Do you want to talk about that now?
Sure. Very simply put, I've had one email and then 3 people have approached me at the rec center asking why we don't have a mandatory vaccination policy or positive negative test policy. And I suggested to 3 of them that they take it up with the entirety of the board, and 1 sent us an email.
Do you want to discuss it from your perspective of what you've been hearing, and do you have any recommendations about it?
I'm not sure I have a recommendation yet. Why people have asked me is that there are some people that felt at the rec center that when staff isn't around or isn't looking, flout the rules and pull their masks down or pull them up. And people have, well, I've only talked to 3, but they've all been positive that they'd like some kind of policy initiated. And I'd be curious to hear what my fellow commissioners think and what staff thinks. The staff has to police it.
Well, I could certainly jump in and give my opinion, which is, yes, we should have it. And I know that, again, I have family in New York, and you can't go any place that's a public venue. You can't go to a restaurant. You can't go to any facility unless you are able to present your vaccination card. And I know that the Omicron virus seems to be spreading, but people feel safer in New York, and they were using facilities to a greater extent. I would certainly like to see a policy, but again, I'm also not going to attend meetings as long as I could do it virtually for the same reasons. So, Terry, Jen?
Well, I'm wondering how this has affected business, or if we know. I mean, I don't know. So I guess, does anybody have any answers for that?
I know I've talked to a lot of people, unlike I don't get the phone calls, but I do have talked to a lot of people who say they just don't, no matter what we say about, healthy environment, wear the mask, they just don't feel comfortable going into a public venue.
Yeah.
And I think they would if they knew everybody there was vaccinated.
I don't know if they would. I mean, you don't want to come to our meetings and we're all vaccinated. I'm not saying that you're a bad person.
There would, yes, you are. There would be a greater likelihood of some people feeling more comfortable participating.
Okay, I'm just looking for data, if we have any, about it. Because there might be a secondary backlash, people that maybe have been going that now don't want to go if they have to always bring this thing. So I don't want to have unintended consequences. Brian Romes, is there anything, do we know anything about this?
Well, I think everybody brings up really good points. We would not be able to collect vaccination cards. So to your point, Terry, it certainly would be, there would be implications from a staffing perspective of being required to check every time they came to the facility, or every time they came to a program, or every time they, so there's a lot more questions than answers, I think. I'm certainly not prepared to, this wasn't an agenda item that we prepared for. So a lot of questions that we would have to do our due diligence on to understand the costs and the risks, both, there's risks on both sides, right? And there's legal risks with doing this. We have to be sure that we're accommodating ADA or any other accommodations. So a lot goes into it. It'd be very, very challenging to do this. And so we just have to really ask ourselves, is the effort to do this needed and worth the cost and impact on how it might affect staff and how it might affect patrons and how it might affect operations and costs. So there's a lot of answers I don't have either, Terry, at this point.
Okay.
Other than it would be a lot of, very logistically challenging and probably a little bit legally challenging as well. But I mean, we are a public facility. We're not a restaurant. We're not a private, we're not a concert or a, venue or anything like that. We're a public facility that is intended to be open. And of course, it's not a mandate right now. We do have a mask mandate. So that's what we're operating under.
Jen?
Yeah, I don't have any questions. I'm just sort of thinking of how you'd even pull that off. There'd have to be a policy. There'd have to be exceptions for people who cannot, right? Because you still pay a membership. So if I say you have to do this thing, but you are not able for whatever reason, but you still want to come work out, then I have to have a solution for that. And maybe, you show it one time and then you're on a list and they just check the list at the door. We are talking about people who come frequently, repeatedly, but then we've got, parents aren't allowed to come in dropping kids off for things like basketball and such. So, I mean, I don't know, is it doable? Sure. But yeah, maybe do the cost benefit analysis on this.
I would suggest that we ask Brian to look into it. Is it legal? And any thoughts as to could it be implemented in a reasonable manner for our indoor facilities? Let's just defer it then, and we brought it up. Brian Kaplan, is that an okay approach?
Yep.
Okay. All right. So now we'll go to director's report. After we've taken away all the thunder that Brian's going to come up with.
Well, thank you, everybody. Just a few announcements before we conclude the meeting. We do have a few events coming up before the end of the year. Tomorrow night, there is a polar parade, so you may see some festive vehicles driving around. Inside there is Santa Claus and Mrs. Claus delivering some gifts to some residents of the Park District, and an elf, actually. So that is tomorrow from 4 to 7:30. So I know there's many people who are excited about that. And then Centennial Ice Arena has some very special family holiday skating nights, December 22nd and December 29th from 5 to 7 in the evening. So it does require some pre-registration, so that can be available on our website. So can check that out over the next 2 weeks during holiday break. And then all of our facilities do have obviously some different hours over the next 2 weeks. So I just rather than going day by day, facility by facility, encourage residents to check out our website before they head to the facility to know what the facility hours are. As I said, they are on our website, pdhp.org. And then when we get into 2022, just a couple things I want to mention before our next board meeting. Highland Nature Center is kicking off. They're doing some events on January 17th, which we also is the 13th annual Martin Luther King Jr. Day of Service, which this year will be virtual in the morning. So more details will be shared about that. I know Terry Grossberg, Commissioner Grossberg is very involved with the Human Relations Advisory Group. And I don't know if you have anything to add to that, but I know more details are coming out soon. In the Park District and the city and the Human Relations Advisory Group work together on that. So I'll pause if you do have anything, Terry, at this
I'll
point.
just say that we have about 25 groups that are participating in one of three ways. They're either putting something up on the city's website for people to, a video or something that tells a little bit about what they do, what service groups do as an organization, or any kind of projects that they'll be running over the next year, or ways for people to get involved. There's also going to be a drop-off site for people that are doing collections. So as trucks, you could pull up, organizations are going to be pulling up trucks, et cetera, to collect things like health and beauty aids, coats, et cetera, like that. That'll be during the time that we're there, which is 12 to 2 on that time. Or thirdly, to announce that they are doing a remote collection of some sort. And so there's three ways that people can participate. I will tell you that Heller is doing something virtually with it. They did it last year as well. If you wanted to know that, I'd have to go look at my list, but they are participating, as well as our foundation is also participating. Jen has offered to paint 300 rocks, so that's very nice of her again this time. So that's good. I did want to mention, Brian, I did want to, is Liz on the call or no on this Zoom?
She is.
Okay. So Liz, I will answer your email. It's probably a yes regarding speaking. I guess nobody else wanted to do it.
I nominated you.
Yeah, thank you.
And
No,
I
seriously,
seconded it.
I nominated you because I know that you are very passionately involved.
Yeah, I know. That's why I was kind of trying to disassociate myself. So I guess I would like to open it up now. If anybody else would like to speak in front of, it would be virtual. So usually Liz writes the speech, so it's actually a really easy gig. So if anybody else wants to do it, let me know. If not, I'd be glad to do it, because of course I have to be there anyway. So that's fine.
Can I just add to, it's pre-recorded, so we can record it at when it's convenient for you to do it. It just has to be done before January 5th.
Getting better every second.
Do you
Okay,
prefer not to do it, Terry? Is that what you're saying?
I'll just do it. It's fine.
Okay.
Why trouble somebody else? Okay. So that's really it. Thanks for giving me a minute to speak about that. I would have been better prepared but that's basically the run.
Well, I know everybody appreciates your service for that event, and it's a great event that's been going on for 13 years, and so we hope everybody tunes in virtually. So the last thing I'll just say is a couple things here. Here is obviously over the winter we do have a lot of outdoor opportunities. When the snow comes and it gets really cold, there are still plenty of things to do outside. We do have a sled hill over at Danny Kniff. So when we get snow, if we get snow, that will open. And we also have cross-country skiing available over at Highland Nature Center. If it snows, we'll note that pre-reservations are required, just like it was over the past year, last year. So please note that. And then when it really gets cold, we'll be able to have outdoor ice skating at Sunset Woods Park. So, but it does require numerous days of cold weather. I know a lot of people ask about it and say it's cold enough to skate, right? But it takes about or 4 days in a row of below freezing to really have ice. Yes.
Oh, good. Annette had her hand up, and then I'm going to raise.
Okay. Okay. I will make my last statement and turn it over to those who would like to speak. Unless there's specific questions about what I'm talking about.
Oh, mine was about what you're talking about, but
Okay, go ahead.
okay. I noticed I was driving by the skating rinks in Deerfield, and they have set up 2 separate rinks, and one have boards around them, and it appears that one doesn't. So I assume that like one is for hockey and one is for figure skating or whatever like that. So we do that as well. Okay.
Yes,
Okay. Thank you. That was it.
Director Voss's favorite. President Ortberg, I don't know if you want to,
Did I see a raised hand?
Council Member Littleware has her hand raised. I'm not sure if it was about this or it was separate. Happy to answer a question.
No, it had to do more with the HVAC stuff, if that's okay.
Yeah.
You what?
Okay.
And
That's
yes,
the committee. That's the committee.
That's the committee, the Martin Luther King Day event. So I just want to say, first of all, you know, I was very disappointed because the committee worked very hard, especially Terry, in putting together and trying to begin having it in person, and then it kind of got changed. So I just want you to know, I mean, I think it's going to be very smooth because we did it last year in a venue that was obviously remote. And the city was just trying really hard to kind of look forward, and in so doing decided to err on the side of caution. And as it turns out, it was probably the right thing to do, considering we don't know what January is going to bring, but it doesn't look like it's going to be bringing us very good things. So that was one thing. I do think the contributions via Terry and Park District have been so in sync with the city, and that's really wonderful in terms of planning. We too have moved a lot of meetings, and I think a lot of organizations that I'm seeing right now are consolidating meetings and trying to meet a little bit less frequently. And some are moving back to in-person, but I think it's kind of putting the brakes on right now too. So I really think that it's sort of a trend, unfortunately, we're seeing. I will say that in terms of meeting times, first of all, I'm really grateful to you about this Wednesday thing, because I'm the liaison to 112 also. And I'm constantly running out of your meeting to go to their meeting, vice versa. So I'm really grateful to you for doing that. But additionally, for Open Meetings Act purposes, especially while we're remote, as long as the time is listed and it's pretty close from committee to general meeting, it's kind of nice because then you can send out one link for everything and still be in compliance with Open Meetings Act. So I think it's really, you know, everything you're doing really seems in keeping with everything that a lot of the other organizations that I sit on are doing. So I really commend you on a very efficient meeting style. So happy holidays to everybody, by the way.
Thank you, Annette.
Thank you. Thank you.
So,
So, yeah, my only last thing I was going to say is just, you know, in concert with what everybody's been saying, you know, amidst the many challenges that we've had over the past 2 years, and even we're still having, you know, there really has been a shining light on what we've been able to do. I feel at the Park District and the efforts of the staff and the board, and they really need for the community to get out and recreate has just been, it's been tremendous to see the residents and their interest and their participation. Certainly some areas have more challenges than others, but I'm really proud of everybody for all the efforts and time that they put into really serving the community. And it's just been really warming to see people get out and recreate and enjoy the parks and the services. So thanks everybody, and happy holidays.
let me add that I think a great deal of thanks needs to go to our staff, Brian, and you've led the staff so well during the trying times we've had. So thank you to you and to the staff as a whole. And I guess to the commissioners too, but I don't want to give them any ego boost. So at this point, is there a motion for adjournment of our meeting for the last time we're going to speak together in 2021.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
Say aye. We stand adjourned at 7:45 PM. And the next
Thanks,
meeting will
everyone.
be